Hi, welcome to Cubs and Culture for 11/11. I will tomorrow, before I go to work, I will do the baseball thing, the off-season preview, and then retrospective on the Cubs, and then the World Series thing. Probably just one big video. Any case, we're up to West Side Story. It's a movie from 1961. It's a musical version of Romeo and Juliet, set in the West Side of New York, and the two families actually are two gangs, the Jets and the Sharks, and one's a white gang and the other one's a Puerto Rican gang. And Juliet is from the Puerto Rican gang, and Romeo is from the white gang, and Maria is Juliet and Tony is Romeo. Anyway, when I was thinking about doing this project, there was a handful of films which I absolutely did not want to watch again, and I did end up suffering through West Side Story, but this is one of them. I think this movie is absolutely horrific. I think when people who like, this is a musical, which people who don't like musicals in general are probably thinking of this type of movie. It's inexplicable to me that this film won 10 Oscars and like this huge winner. I don't understand how anyone could possibly like it. I think it's ill-conceived on every single level. So let me bring up the trailer and some clips before I get too ranty about that. See you in a sec. Okay, so probably my biggest problem of this is it's supposed to... Okay, so there's two things that really bother me about this film. The first thing is it's a version of Romeo and Juliet. Except at the end, the Juliet stand-in, her name is Maria, doesn't die, which kind of guts this story of all its sort of dramatic heft and everything like that, because it's supposed to be the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, not the tragedy of Romeo. And... there's no reason for her not to, like there's no plot reason for her not to kill herself. She absolutely could have, and it's worked, and it's absolutely could have happened. It was just an artistic decision they could have made. So there's that. The other thing that really pisses me off about this movie, where I really don't think it works, is, and you can see this a little bit in the trailers, it's supposed to be two hoodlums and two gangs fighting. And there's just this conceptual problem where it's supposed to be sort of two gangs fighting, but they fight by interpretive dance, which is just goddamn ridiculous. Everything like that. And so in every step of the way, the producers of this film, meaning Robbins and who's the Wise, who are the co-directors, made decisions to me as bold and as colorful as possible at all times, and so it becomes completely overcooked and over the top and absolutely awful, and it goes into camp very, very quickly, and not like good camp but like bad camp. So it's just ill-conceived and everything like that. And then sort of on the same notion is the movie transfers the two houses in Romeo and Juliet who have had a family conflict into ethnic tensions between native Manhattaners and people from Puerto Rico, Puerto Ricans. Now that's fine. I don't really have an issue with that. I actually think it should be reversed, where the Romeo stand-in, Tony, should be Puerto Rican, and the Juliet stand-in should be native Manhattaners, because I think that's a better version, because of sort of the way in which men of color are hypersexualized and in a bigoted way would drive that home point. It just feels backwards. But the thing is, Natalie Wood is Maria. Natalie Wood is one of the most Caucasian people on earth, and while most Puerto Ricans identify as Caucasian, it's a weird category where Puerto Rican is not WASP or white, and so it really sort of bothers me that in the context of this movie dealing with ethnic tensions, that you have this whitewashed character who's sort of the main character, where she's Natalie Wood, who is one of the whitest women on earth, playing a Puerto Rican, and it just sort of bothers me. And so you have ridiculous, over-the-top musical theater mixed with whitewashing of ethnic tension, and then to really drive home how fucking like over-the-top this is the script, even in the non-lyrics, is just constantly injecting 50 slang, and they couldn't let, anytime there was a chance to use 50 slangs in this movie, the film takes that chance, and it's just unbelievably obnoxious, because there's just too many daddy-os and punks and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes the movie feel completely artificial and false. I'm only going to show one scene because I really dislike this movie. I really wasn't looking forward to doing it. So, I mean, and the other thing is, these are supposed to be teenage hoodlums, but everyone looks like they're in their 30s, and everything like that. And so there's this one song, it's called Gee, Officer Krupke. It's the only part of the film I actually like. I think it's actually kind of a clever bit of satire. I mean, most of the music songs are okay in and of themselves, and I imagine, so if you just listen to the score, the music's okay. It's pretty good. And then Stephen Sondheim, who did a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, Into the Woods, and Sweeney Todd is probably most of his work. He's the lyricist here. He did not write the music. He wrote the lyrics. Though I wouldn't be surprised if he recommended some melodies to Bernstein, who's the guy who's officially credited. Anyway, so Gee, Officer Krupke is easily the best part of the film. It's also the song that feels most Sondheim to me, because there's a lot of puns in this. So like at one point, one of the lines is, "I'm depraved because I'm deprived," which is absolutely a Sondheim lyric. And it's all the social, it's basically the Jats here mocking all the sociological explanations for why they're hoodlums, which is absolutely hysterical to me. And it's a really funny, upbeat song, and it's the only part of the movie that mostly works for me. But it also, I think, shows the absolute problem with this film, where it just goes too far. Because again, even though the puns and the lyrics are really clever here, it's no other song really that has this comedic quality to it. And then again, these are supposed to be hoodlums in the 1950s on the west side of New York, and they're doing like ballet and everything like that, and it's just over the top. And then if you look at it sort of like on the visual quality, it's all very colorful and stagey, and so it's really hard to get into this movie on sort of the fundamental level of suspending your disbelief, because everything feels artificial and contrived and absolutely staged. And I don't understand why this movie won 10 Oscars, because it's awful. I think the movie has not aged well at all. It very much feels like a product of the early 60s. Everything like that. And it's just, God. I mean, this movie is so incompetent that it's a version of Romeo and Juliet in which Juliet does not die. And everything like that. And then it also sort of injects, like the thing is, I don't know what, like, if the movie's trying to do, if it's trying to transfer Romeo and Juliet into an ethnic context, or if it's trying to just use the star-crossed lovers trope, or what. But it's not just star-crossed lovers between two warring factions, because not only does like Tony die at the end, but there's also like a twist of fate, where a message by a carrier goes awry to Juliet, to the Juliet character, everything like that. You have the Officer Krupke, who stands in for the Prince in Romeo and Juliet, not really being a behind the being a source of tension. Then also in the sort of the original, like back in the 1600s when Romeo and Juliet was first performed, that most people, because of the social context or the cultural context, really came across as that's why teenagers should listen to their parents, as opposed to the theme that we take to a day of the tragedy of young love. It's much more like these were dumb teenagers who shouldn't listen to their parents. And again, West Side Story sort of has that quality there, but it's so like it just feels like a mishmash and just absolutely poorly ill thought out. It's like it's almost like this movie exists because of a Stoner Conversation. Like Robbins, who's the guy who drove the stage show that the movie is based off of, got high. Like again, I don't know if this is true. This is what it feels like to me. It's just like he got high one day. He's like, let's do Romeo and Juliet on the west side of New York with Puerto Ricans and Native Manhattaners, because that makes sense. And so it's a lot of good craftsmanship in service of a terrible fucking idea. And in my money, I haven't seen all the best pictures. I've seen like 95% of them. They're still like out of Africa, but I haven't seen, so this might change. But as far as I'm concerned, this is probably the worst best picture winner. Okay, so this is going to be Cubs and Culture for 11/11. See you guys tomorrow.